I think that clearly people don't get the morality from these books because there's some really horrible things in these books that even fundamentalists don't follow. Yeah. And I think that's clearly an example of somebody projecting their own morality on the book rather than receiving morality from it. And I'd say also that I do think that there is a harm, Rich, in having a non-evidence-based thing of life. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go on an inquisition, right, but it can also make me a sap, that if I believe, for instance, in something without evidence, somebody can basically sell me the proverbial magic beans. Like, for instance, in Iraq right now, there are Iraqi cops that are buying, I don't know if you're familiar with what a dowsing rod is?
I am.
They're buying.
I've heard of one, sure.
Basically, it's a hunk of plastic or wire or rope.
Water.
Yeah, you find water. Except there's an American company that's selling Iraqi cops.
Yeah.
One that's supposed to find car bombs.
Oh my gosh.
And it's basically, they're selling them for about, I think it's like $800 a pop.
Right.
And somebody's going to get killed over that. Not only that, at the very least, even if nobody got blown up, they're still getting ripped off.
Well, now, you see, and here's the point. I absolutely agree with you where that is a belief, a false belief, that will cause pain and harm. Mm-hmm. You know, we all have the elderly grandmother who, oh, that's just Grandma Munna. Let her believe whatever she wants to believe. It makes her happy. She's not harming anyone. Now, again, I agree with you. In a functioning society, we all have to act with good information and, like you say, provable science information.
Yeah.
So, again, the problem with religion is that we're claiming it to be, I say we, society in general, claims it to be factual science, factual, real stuff, as opposed to it's just something that makes me feel better. It's something that kind of makes me this way.
Okay.
I still believe in science, gravity, magnetism, you know, those things.
There's one thing, Rich, that I would throw in there is that bad ideas or non-evidence-based ideas don't always exist in isolation. Yeah. And that I mean, essentially, if you treat your methodology for determining whether a fact is true or false, I think of it as sort of a screen door that keeps bad things out. I still get air into the room, but not bugs. The problem with having big gaping holes where bad ideas like that come in is that these things, like I said, don't exist in isolation. That yes, Jesus may have stopped me from drinking and may have made me a better husband, but there's something that comes with it, that a lot of times it might make somebody much more socially intolerant of women or homosexuals or
mostly just more incredulous. I think being gullible is the part that it is the most harm.
I think
when you're on the pattern of believing things without much evidence, then you are susceptible to believing just about anything.
Yeah, it becomes like you said, then the holes in the screen door are wide. Anything can sort of get in, including harmful ideas. That if there isn't this immediate going, okay, wait, where's the evidence for this? Because there are things that are. That's another thing that Sam Harris says, is that even where religion or faith-based ideas get you to do a good thing, it's getting you to do a good thing for a bad reason, where there are good reasons that actually exist.
Right.
And usually that sort of feeling doesn't, like I said, it doesn't come in isolation. It's a Trojan horse for a lot of other things that are sort of inevitable. I'd say that even a seemingly positive feeling based on some sort of faith-based mystical idea has any one of them has potential harm attached to it, if you get what I mean.
Well, yeah, and again, I'm going to go back to what I'm saying with the idea that saying what I'm saying about believing this thing in quotation marks, that I accept it to be the fact that it's not a provable thing. It's not a real thing. I believe in evidence. I believe that, you know, even if you want to claim there is a quote-unquote God or a quote-unquote some kind of connectivity with all living matter, the table you guys are sitting at is living matter. It's moving energy. You and I are moving energy. And so we all are connected. And what are we connected by? Well, once upon a time, maybe people said it's God, you know, and that's the short phrase that we use for it. So is it really God, or is it that we are all connected? And the fact that we want to call it one thing or another, sure, those are made-up tales, you know, the boogeyman, the Santa Claus, and all these different things. Let's get back to now, the fact that we're all connected, can that make me a better person? Can that make me feel more connected to my fellow man?
I certainly am not going to decry someone's belief system if it has the tendency to bring people together, but for the reasons that we said before, it can also do harm. The assertion that we're all connected...
And if the fact does harm, you're right.
Right. Yeah. Well, the assertion, though, and we're going to have to wrap this up real quick, Rich.
Go.
The assertion that we're all connected, I think it depends on in what way you're... I mean, we are connected, meaning that all of the elements that make up our bodies and everything that makes up our brains and what our selves are shared in common. We're all, as Sagan would say, made of star stuff. We're basically all made of the same elements. We're all on the same planet. We're plugged into roughly the same cultures and some of the same influences. But are we? I mean, on what sense are we connected in a more broad, ethereal way? I think a lot of theists and a lot of people will want to say, well, you know, there's a spirit or there's something else that we belong to that's ineffable and can't be quantified. That's the part where yes, we're connected in some ways.
In a biological sense.
Right. We are connected. I don't. If you want to take it beyond the things that I think we have evidence for, then I think that I'll disagree with you and say,
sure.
We're connected, but what does that mean? I mean, yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for taking so much time. Great show.
Thank you, Rich. Thanks for calling in.
Keep it up. Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
All right.
Well, that was a nice conversation.
So let's just skip yoga.
Skip yoga today.
Yes, let's skip yoga today.
Yoga flame.
I'm feeling limber enough. So the topic for today is viewer calls and emails, and luckily we've actually got 2 great calls before that.
Right off the bat.
Even if the first was a lurch by Sataning.
Lurch by Sataning. Remember, you got to shoot him in the head. That's what puts him down.
For the head. So we were you and I were going through all of our emails. We've done an email show, and we do get emails. And some of them are interesting. Some of them are just sort of attaboy emails. But we have one viewer who's came back again and again and again to give us emails, and he is, of course, the now infamous Gary Burgeon.
Yeah.
He's from Sheffield, right?
Sheffield, UK. Gary, I really don't know if you like us or not, Gary, because you've given us emails where you declare us that we've made a terrible enemy this day, and you have other emails where you seem to really like us. I'm not really sure. I don't know. On some level, I know it's not very likely that he might skin us and wear our clothes as our skin is clothes.
Yes, right.
But I think,
puts the lotion on its skin,
or else it gets a hose again. I think I'm not gonna. We kick Gary around, not because he's technically a fan, but.
Right.
Gary is wrong on a lot of things. As Sam Mulvey, one of our hosts, likes to say, that if you do atheism dogmatically, you're doing it wrong. Unfortunately, that seems to be how Gary does it. We have a little bit of a recent email exchange from Gary. To get an idea of how often Gary emails us, we don't normally hey, let's pick on this email writer that we got. The last time Gary emailed us, he emailed us 5 times before we had opened it. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Swingers, where a character gets a girl's phone number, calls her up, and the answering machine runs out of time before he finishes, so he calls her back, calls back, and eventually she just picks up the phone and says, "Never call me again." Gary basically did that to us with email.
Right.
And let's get a little piece of what Gary has done.
I'm only going to read a little bit about this. He says, the atheist programs, and I think he's referring to us and to Atheist Experience, talk about critical thinking and free thought. I've contacted you and have rung in, but you've called me dogmatic, and on YouTube messages I've been called a Nazi and a Stalin lover. It's just that any time people mention God, faith, or religion, to me, I see those white sheets of Omar he's talking about, an IRA bombing in the 80s, I think, and carpets of bodies in Africa, or the trucks of bodies being dumped on the doorsteps of NATO peacekeeping forces in Bosnia. I agree with you when you say that I turn my brain off, as it is the only way to deal with religion.
That's the thing I find just bizarre, is that one thing that Gary's done with us a number of times is that he basically says that we have to abandon evidence-based arguments and basically just say, there is definitely no God, I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say, nothing will change my mind, to which we said, it sounds like you want atheism to be a religion. And he immediately chimes in with, that's absolutely right. And if you watch the episode that he calls in on, you'll see the look on Sam's face. because that's not what we expected him to say. And when I said, in a lot of ways, Gary wants us to be the anti-Ray Comfort, who's that televangelist who is famous for the banana argument for God. And Gary responds going, yes, that's absolutely it. I want to be that. And now I said, it sounds like you want us to turn your brain off. And he's like, yes, it's absolutely it. So Gary, I'm gonna raise the ante a bit here and say that you want us to be like the atheist Fred Phelps. And I want to see if you'll buy into that, because as later on in this email, it's going to sound a lot more like that. Jesus, Gary, come on. I mean, it's like a Michael Scott level of self-awareness here. This is not what it is. It's the reason that there's no evidence for God. That's why I don't believe. It's not because God is harmful, and I think he needs to learn how to separate the harm religion does with the actual faith, the truth quotient of the ontological claims you're making.
Right.
Those are completely indifferent. It's like I have a friend Paul who's a liberal Christian. He believes in a much nicer God than people like Pat Robertson do. Yet there's no evidence for his God either. Even if everything was sunshine and puppy dogs and daffodils, there's still no evidence. It can be wonderful and perfect.
Right. So let's go on and we'll try to quickly burn through. He says, don't look at the causes of religious harm. Look at the results and make your conclusions from them. Well, I think we should always try to look at things in context. So I think just looking at the causes of things might lead you to jumping to certain conclusions that may not be there if you don't actually understand the cause. Looking at the results, if you don't look at you don't understand the causes, I think you're going to have a pretty impoverished view of what's happening in the world. I don't agree with you when you say that I'm mistaking the harm done by religion and a belief in a God. Belief in a God results in conflict and death. I mean, it's a pretty absolute statement for him to make. There are plenty of people who live their lives as religious and don't end up dying or killing people because of it. I am also prepared to become the first atheist martyr by picketing churches, mosques, and synagogues, and a sandwich board saying, quote, there are definitely no gods, stop wasting your lives, unite in atheism, unquote.
Like I said, that's the anti-Fred Phelps.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think there are reasons to protest. Like, I'm happy with protesting the Pope for his direct involvement in covering up pedophile priests and shuffling them around to get new victims. His signature is on papers moving those guys around. So I'm fine protesting him. But just screaming at believers and saying there's absolutely no God, I'm going to be, there's a stand-up comedian once who had a thing where he's making fun of the most recent Batman movie where Batman makes a thing like, to battle fear, you must become fear. And I'm like, so basically Gary's doing the equivalent, saying that to fight religion, he must become religion.
Right.
That he must make the same sort of, baseless assertions, unwillingness to hear other points of view, non-evidence-based, just straight out like, I'm going to stick my fingers in my ear and say, la, 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 la. It's amazing. And he's just going to eventually, like Fred Phelps is. Fred Phelps is not going to try to change anyone's mind. He's just like, I'm going to go out and be a dick.
Yeah. We'll try to finish up here just so we can put a close on it. He says, he's following up to being the picketer, the chances are I will come to harm, but what a way to go out.
Oh, Jesus.
Proving that religion is nothing more than a power-grabbing thuggery. If I do die, I'm really hoping that there is an afterlife because I will kick God's ass for all the suffering he or she has caused on earth. And if I go straight to hell for being an atheist, then I'm going to kick the devil's ass for doing a crap job of destroying God. And I will take his job and do it properly. God is hopefully crapping himself because his number is being called by me, Gary the livid dogmatic atheist. When I read this, I was like, is this Poe? Is he pulling our leg?
Is this the point where he reveals him? He pulls off the Scooby-Doo mask and says, I'm faking the whole time? Because it's
for a guy who's so certain that there isn't a God, he certainly is hedging his bets that there is an afterlife, a heaven, and a hell, and he's definitely getting a plan for
he's going to go all Chuck Norris on Yahweh, and it's just like, come on. Gary, if you definitely believe there are no gods, why is this even a topic in this email? It's not like, just in case I ever have to fight Spider-Man, here is my plan. It's like, no, it's not at all likely. Come on. Do you believe in gods or not? Because if you don't, this is like something a 13-year-old, this is the same thing that childish sort of Satanist contrarian thing, like, oh, I'm going to beat up God, and I'm going to beat up Satan too, and I'm going to take his job, and I'm going to do it right.
It does sound. I mean, the question here really is, does he actually believe in it? I mean, does he believe it? Does he even swallow what he's trying to sell, which is that there is definitely no gods. We should go out and we should shake people by the shoulders and say, stop believing this nonsense.